Magic Mike Show, where you hear the experts speak. The Magic Mike Show. Tune into the show every week. The Magic Mike Show. You can trust the show is the bomb because it's being brought to you by RacingDudes.com.
What's up, everybody? I'm Magic.
And I'm Mike.
And this is the Magic Mike Show, episode 544, Mr. Somich.
I mean, this is an easy one. It's Derby week. Huzzah!
Woo! I got the Clark Kent glasses on. See, when I have the glasses on, I'm Curtis Kalleward of FanDuel, but now I'm Magic, so we're good. Listen, very excited about this show. Mike had proposed this idea. We're going to go through and analyze the Kentucky Derby field, including the two also eligibles. We're going to go horse by horse. We're going to tell you our early pick. I say early because if you're catching this on replay, it's Monday. I have 5 horses I'm considering for my top 4 for the Bible, so this could definitely change. But our early picks as of right now, as well as horses we think can hit the exacta, trifecta, super, any long shots that we're interested in here. So try and keep it mostly positive. We'll tell you if we're not interested in a horse or not, but mostly it's about trying to help you, the audience, find a horse that you're like, I don't know about. Maybe I like this long shot. Maybe we can convince you whether or not it's a good idea to play it. So I'm excited about this, Mike.
Yeah, it's going to be fun ripping through the entire field. We're going to have a lot more talk around the undercards on Friday and Saturday when we do the Thursday show. So stay tuned for that because the undercard's phenomenal. I thought Friday's card is one of the 10 toughest cards I've handicapped in the last 2 years. Just deep fields, a lot of different places you can go. So the undercard phenomenal on Friday, about 80% through Saturday yet. I think you have a little more, you have more favorites that I like more in that spot. I think there are favorites that are going to be shorter prices on Saturday versus what we're going to see on Friday, but at the same time, still a very difficult card as well.
Justin Cates says this is already the longest week ever. Listen, usually we would, if this was a normal year, we're still 2 hours away from them drawing the field right now. So I'm very happy that they came out on Saturday because we've already had plenty of time to analyze it, overanalyze it, think about trends, discuss and debate. And that's what makes this show great. So we're really happy about that one. Rob, I'm with you. I keep changing too. Like I said, there's gonna be early picks. I'm trying to put that big caveat on it now because I don't want to be held to that. And then somebody buys the Bible and they're like, Magic said that he liked this horse. He doesn't even have it in the top 4. Probably won't do that drastic of a drop, but definitely some horses I'm and still trying to figure out where I think that they will fit in here. Yeah, I agree, Rob. New draw date was clutch. And I agree with Mike. This, just from the onset here, the 2 days that they've got at Churchill Downs looks awesome. It's like almost like a pre-Breeders' Cup, right? Like we're 6 months out from the Breeders' Cup, so it kind of fits. But you've got so many horses from Gulfstream, from Keeneland, California, New York. The horses that we haven't seen at all this year are making big returns. So a lot of question marks, a lot of big races, Mike.
Yeah, a lot of question marks, a lot of big races, a lot of fun horses that are shipping in. We're going to get to see some fairgrounds horses run against Gulfstream horses, run against Santa Anita horses. And I love the idea of seeing those different tracks meld together and how those specific horses do. And it really makes, again, the undercard race is very, very tough. But we're here to talk the Derby, Magic, and I am excited to get into it. Unlike you, I am pretty sure who my top pick for the race will be come Saturday. I am not sure who I will be filling out the tries, the supers with yet. And there's one horse specifically I can't wait to talk to you about that we have been talking about quite a bit on this show that I have a futures ticket on that I don't know if I'm using. I actually don't know if I'm using either horse. I have a futures ticket on. So excited to talk about those two as well. To me, that's where this has been more difficult. The top pick kind of I think is more straightforward for me. And I'm generally been pretty fast to make my top pick. I think I've had because we did those shows for Bet US a couple years ago. Knew on Monday, right when the draw happened, who my top pick was going to be there. Knew it was going to be Mage last year. Year before that, I went back and forth, and no one really had that one. Feel like I have a pretty good idea where we're going this year on top, but I think underneath it could be madness.
Michael says, please no TO password Somich. I will say, since Mike's not in the Discord has been very hotly debating since Saturday who your pick is this year. On Saturday's show when we covered the live draw, Aaron, Jared, and I. After the race was drawn, Aaron said, I know pre-draw who Somich's pick is. I'm curious to see if it stays that way after the draw, because that does affect things. You know, you got to figure out if you thought it was going to be a horse that needs to be drawn outside of horses and he's way on the rail, you're like, well, shoot, I don't like that horse anymore. But there has been hot debate about that. So we will reveal who Mike Somich's pick is at some point during the show. So tune into that one.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I like I said, this is the early pick. So Matt, by giving the top pick here, Yes, we will say who my pick is right now, as Magic will say who his pick is right now, but obviously things can change. We also have some weather possibly in the forecast. Might have a rainy derby, which could adjust things as well. I know both of our picks, both of our picks will be available in the guide over at racingdudes.com. I'll have Somobombs for both Friday and Saturday from Kentucky, from Churchill Downs. I'll have VSiN articles up on Friday and Saturday for spot plays and spot races, and then doing shows pretty much all week everywhere to talk about this race. So the final pick will be Thursday on this show. So make sure you come back to the Magic Mike show on Thursday for final thoughts and the late pick 5 here on Saturday. But this is the preliminary look at it. And a big part of it for me is trying to talk through some of this with you, Magic, and figure out where everyone slots in that underneath section. Because I do think that you could take 12 different horses in the 2nd through 4th spots, really, if you wanted to. I think at the top, I think it's a much shorter list. But that underneath, that superfecta could go a lot of directions.
And there's always bombs that come up there, right? I remember... oh my goodness, I always forget his name. It was a Jerry Hollendorfer trainee that came in 4th the year that it went Justify, Good Magic, Audible, and you had like an 80-1 shot. And that super for $1 still paid buckets when you had 3 very logical horses there in the top 3. So lots of fun here. The most important question here, Matthew Curtis asking, how excited are you for Trapit Trice's return, Mike? Because I know you were so excited to play anybody other than that horse.
Are you ready for this?
Yes.
I put Trapit Trice on top.
Oh boy, it's going to be that kind of a show.
Let's go, baby. Trapit Trice. The return this weekend.
He's in the grade 2 Ali Sheba, which is going to be Friday. It's race 7 on the Kentucky Oaks undercard. So you'll get all of our picks for that as part of the Kentucky Derby, Kentucky Oaks Betting Bible. Quick plug. If you are not already a subscriber and you're interested in purchasing the Kentucky Derby, Kentucky Oaks Betting Bible, which it's getting you all races for both days. So that's 27 total races, top 4 picks, betting suggestions from Aaron and Jared. That's $50. If you sign up for the premium picks this monthly, that's $70. I don't know what the Somobombs off the top of my head, but I know that if you get either of those subscriptions, you're getting the Bible for the Derby Oaks included, as well as the Preakness Stakes. So that's $100 value right there that you're getting included along with all of the picks that you're buying. So huge value. Go check that out. They'll have all of our picks for that. But everybody's here because they want to hear us analyze the Kentucky Derby field for 2024. Let's get into it, buddy. Bugler Steve, riders up. Much better performance there. I was trying to remember. I think that was the 2021 Kentucky Derby that video clip is from. But much better performance than he had for the post draw. It was not a great one here. However, we're not here to critique the great Steve Buttleman, the bugler for Churchill Downs. Let's talk about the field. We're going post position order, starting on the rail. And Danny Gargan, he's got bookends on this field right now. He's got post 1 and post 20. I'm not sure which one he's probably more upset about. But Dornoch 20-1. Luis Saya is going to ride from the rail. What do you think about this horse right now, Mike?
I haven't been a Dornoch fan throughout this whole process, so it won't surprise you. This is one of my Chuck horses, not going to be used in Dornoch anywhere, but I think Dornoch is an important horse to start the conversation with because the draw for Dornoch really sets up a faster pace in this Derby than what I was projecting before the actual post draw. Dornoch, absolutely no choice but to go to the front from the 1 post. I think you'd agree with me with that. And that is going to push some other horses who want the lead or want to be close to the lead to kind of force those faster fractions. So I do think we're going to have a decent pace here in the Derby, specifically because Dornoch drew the 1.
I agree. And as someone, you'll find out later, but I was excited about this, not because I wanted to play him, but because I think that this will make for an honest pace, a very honest pace. And Dornoch, to his credit, before the Bluegrass Stakes, where they said, look, we already know we're in the Kentucky Derby based off of points. We are safe, secure. So in the Bluegrass, let's take him back. Let's purposely rate him, put him behind horses and see how that, well, it didn't work. He was 4th, beaten 6.5 lengths. He didn't look comfortable really ever. He looked pissed off that Luis Saez was making him rate. But before that, 3 straight wins, 2 seconds. So he'd never finished off the board or outside the exacta even prior to that race. Always a horse that, other than the Monmouth Stakes, his second career start when he was in the Sapling and he had an outside draw and was caught wide, this horse has really just been right there on the lead a little bit for every spot. And, winner of the Remsen Stakes, I saw Rob White mention here, this Remsen, this is another year where the Remsens produced several great horses. You had Dornoch barely beating Sierra Leone, who's actually the next horse we'll talk about here. Moonlight has been, he's back on turf, almost won his turf return. Copper Tax just won the Federico Tessio Stakes. He's got an automatic bid to the Preakness Stakes. Domestic Product was in that race. He finished 7th, but he won the Tampa Bay Derby. Like a very productive Remsen, and all of those horses, we've got 4 horses that are going to be in either the Derby or the Preakness Stakes here. So that's huge, Mike.
Yeah, that's a great Remsen. We're going to have that common theme as we go through this. We have a couple of races that clearly were key races, and I would argue the Remsen probably falls under that list. The problem for Dornoch, clearly his best race of his career was the Remsen, and he's run twice since then as a 3-year-old and not been able to take that step forward. I don't even mind the Bluegrass effort as much as I hated the Fountain of Youth effort. To me, that was the one where it was a real issue with it, where it got everything his own way. The field scratches down to 5. Every other legitimate contender goes out. And it looked like he was going to lose multiple times in that race. And then that, to me, was a big problem. If you do like Dornoch here, you got to explain to me what went wrong in that Fountain of Youth race. It's weird to say that when a horse wins, but again, he should have won by 10, considering what the pace was. And he was kind of spinning his wheels down the lane. And then they try to switch up the style in the Bluegrass. That's not an option today. You cannot try and stalk from the one post. That is going to go very poorly for you. So you're going to get that Fountain of Youth-esque effort from Dornoch, or a trip from Dornoch. And man, he needs to improve a lot real quick to be able to hit the board here.
Number 2 horse, Sierra Leone, where, like I said, we were going to talk about him next. Won his debut, second by a nose in the Remsen to Dornoch, wins the Risen Star in his 3-year-old debut, wins the Bluegrass last time out, third off the bench, third start at 3. He's also 3-1 on the second choice on the morning line, and he is a dead set closer. You need a pace meltdown for this horse to win this race.
Yes, you do. I will not be using Sierra Leone in anything. He is a chuck for me. And it's twofold. It's first because of the post position in the style. We've already talked about Tap It Trice. I wasn't expecting that in this podcast, in this stream, but I still comp Sierra Leone toward Tap It Trice. These are both very big horses that aren't nearly as athletic as some of their more slender competition, and need to have all the momentum and to be rolling. And at some point, Sierra Leone is either going to get stopped or have to go 10 wide. And the fact that he drew the 2, I said this about Tap It Trice, I'm going to say it about Sierra Leone. He's going to be the last horse under the wire the first time, as long as no one completely misses the break. He is going to be the last one, because he's not only slow, he's also now on the inside and going to face that wave of horses coming over. So yes, he may save ground on the first turn, but the trip after the first turn is what I think is going to be really tough. And if you go back and you watch last year's Kentucky Derby, and even 2 years ago when Rich Strike won, both of those horses had made a move before they came out of the turn. Mage was almost, I think, was in fourth or third coming into the stretch, and only had to chase down a couple horses. Sierra Leone's not going to be in that position. Sierra Leone's going to be 7th, 8th, 9th coming into the stretch and just have a lot of work to do. And then the price is the other problem here. 3-1 to me, just way too short on a horse that, we'll talk about it later, but like Fierceness, your favorite, Sierra Leone needs to improve by 10%, no matter what metric you look at, to run Fierceness's currently best race. And yet they are 3-1 and 5-2. The price is just too short for me. Yes, Sierra Leone may run up into the super and bust up my super, but at 3-1, I'm willing to take that shot.
I have him hitting the board. I think he's got a good chance, I think, to hit the exact. He just, when he gets clear and has a straight path to run at, he's got such a great turn of foot when he gets going. The problem is, when will he get clear? Is Tyler Gaffalione going to be able to swing him wide? And will he have to go 10 wide at the off the turn? Like, that's a long stretch to have to be making that after doing a 10 wide move. If he's ducking and diving, doing the Rich Strike move, you need all of those holes to open up perfectly. Mind that Bird was the same way. Like, all of those holes that open perfectly, and they can, but that is a big risk to take at the price. So I understand what you're saying. For me, he's a hit the board type, but is not, as of right now, my win pick. You mentioned that there's supposed to be some rain possibly in the forecast for Saturday. We're recording this on Monday, April 29th. If it rains and it becomes very sloppy, I know a lot of people are going to be big on the number 3 Mystic Dan. What say you?
Oh, man, this is one where if it rains, if it's fast, I'm chucking him completely. If it rains, I could be talked into like a long shot super type play. I don't see Mystic Dan being able to win the race under any circumstances here. So I'm never going to have him on top, but I could be talked into 3rd or 4th if it rains and he gets the right trip. He is not quick out of the gate, but not slow either. So he should get a decent trip, should be able to save some ground. But again, the issue for me here is the 3-post, right? You look at the 1 through 4 posts prior to last year, we did see the 3-2 fills hit the board, but 2 fills I thought was a better horse than Mystic Dan was. Prior to last year, no one had hit the board since 2017 in the Kentucky Derby from those 1 through 3 posts. Generally not a good place to be. And again, he's going to face that wave coming in. And I think that's going to cause a problem for Mystic Dan. So he's a chuck horse for me now. He may get elevated up to a horse I would consider in the 4th spot. But outside of that, I can't get there with Mystic Dan.
Yeah, I'm with you. I can understand he's a chuck horse for me. I can understand people making the case for if it rains. But you also have to consider who he was facing in the mud in the Southwest. Like, yes, he won by 8 lengths, but he beat Just Steel. He beat Liberal Arts. Just Steel is Just Steel. You know, he shows up and he runs his race every time, but this is a much tougher race than what he's ever faced. Liberal Arts was a neck behind Just Steel, and Liberal Arts is prepping for like the Indiana Derby or something like that. So sorry, Shoddy. So I don't have any interest in Mystic Dan, but this is the classic Kenny McPeak at a price with Brian Hernandez Jr. aboard. So if you like him, everything's going to line up for what the trends say in terms of his trainer and his connections, who you should use here. Just not for me.
Yeah, I again, could hit the board. Not completely out of the realm of possibility, but needs a lot to go right. And that 3 post, it's going to be interesting because Dornoch is going from the 1. Mystic Dan probably wants to sit in like 3rd or 4th, somewhere in that range. There's a lot of speed to the outside that's going to push him over. And so if he doesn't break perfectly clean and stay on the hip of Dornoch, I don't see how he gets the trip he wants. And if he does stay on the hip of Dornoch and they go 45-3 to the half, I don't see how he finishes.
I wasn't making fun of Indiana. I was saying the Indiana Derby, like it's a grade 3 race in the summer when all of the big races are at big tracks. I'm not trying to poo-poo.
No, Magic.
We like the Indiana. We love Horseshoe Indianapolis. I'm not poo-pooing the track.
Yeah, but Magic does hate Indiana.
I hate the state of Indiana personally, but that's not what we're talking about on this show. Number 4, Catching Freedom, Brad Cox, Flavian Pratt, a trainer and a jockey who have each won the Kentucky Derby via disqualification. Brad Cox, like a year later, so he never got to celebrate. They're going to try and team up together. Last year, they were 3rd with Angel of Empire, who was the favorite, was my top pick for this same ownership group. Albaugh Family Stables. What do you say about Catching Freedom?
This is the one that I'm struggling with a ton. I have Catching Freedom at 25-1 to win the Derby on a futures ticket. We almost drafted Catching Freedom, got taken in front of us in the Kentucky Derby draft, kind of regretting that one because that would have been a nice addition to the team. Love the Pratt's aboard. I thought the last race was phenomenal. The Louisiana Derby, the Catching Freedom ran, was a very good race. And the difference we saw from Catching Freedom in the Risen Star, where he was still goofy, to what we saw in the Louisiana Derby, where he figured it out, I thought was a very nice step forward. I don't love the post. Clearly going to be closing. Pratt did a very good job with Angel of Empire last year in kind of a similar situation. I do think Catching Freedom's a little more athletic, not as quite as big of a horse as Sierra Leone. I think Catching Freedom also has a little more speed than Sierra Leone, so I think that's at least a positive for Catching Freedom. Probably a try super horse for me, but this is the one where, like, I don't think I can put Catching Freedom on top. I think I'm probably leaving Catching Freedom out of the exacta, which is where I thought I was going to have Catching Freedom when I originally started through this. But I'm scared of the post and the trip we're going to see from this horse.
I am in the same boat as you in the sense that I'm struggling what to do. But as of right now, this is my top pick. And where I'm struggling, it's been my top pick. This has been my top pick since he won the Louisiana Derby. Where I'm struggling with this is the post. Because he's going to have as many as 16 horses, assuming nobody, in his inside scratches, 16 horses coming down on him. I would love him to be like in the middle, like between 7 and 12, 7 and 14, somewhere in there. What I'm looking for from Flavian Pratt, and this is just me knowing Flavian Pratt and what he's done in the past. Nobody said anything. My own hopeful intuition here. He won the race on Country House, won it. It was finished 2nd, but Country House was like 65-1 that day, I think. Yeah. Country House, that was the first time Pratt had ridden him. Before that race, Country House was an absolute dead set closer. Flavian Pratt put him into the race early and kept him. He was like 8th or 9th all the way around in a huge, the field of 20. I need to see him do that with Catching Freedom. He needs to be able to be ahead of Sierra Leone and with a clearer path ahead of him than Sierra Leone if he wants to beat Sierra Leone, because I think these are the 2 best closers, like late kick horses in the field, at least with it being a fast track. I need Catching Freedom to not be anywhere close to Sierra Leone. He needs to be in the middle of the pack, and he's going to need to break well in order to get there. So as of right now, this is my top pick at 8-1, but it's up in the air, but this is my top pick.
Yeah, I mean, I don't completely disagree with you. We saw Catching Freedom and Sierra Leone face each other in that Risen Star, and Sierra Leone just had a better closing kick. But again, where they sit in this race is going to be a big part of it. And one of the reasons why I'm struggling so much with this is Flavian Pratt. I mean, you mentioned Country House. We like last year, Angel of Empire. He has given very, very good rides from very difficult, tough post positions in the Kentucky Derby. He has not yet given a bad ride in this race with 20 horses going postward. And I think that has to at least be factored in when you're handicapping and where you're putting Catching Freedom in this spot.
Next up is Catalytic. There was some debate in the Discord because people know that you do like Catalytic. His second place in the Florida Derby is what got him here for Saffie Joseph Jr. Is Catalytic in your top picks here?
Catalytic is definitely a horse I will be using in the Try and Super. This is one of those where I don't. This is your Mage comp. I'm sorry, it is. Like it's almost to a T of what we saw from Mage last year. The difference is we haven't seen it twice. And that I would have Catalytic higher if Catalytic had gone 2 turns twice versus just doing it once, just doing it the first time in the Florida Derby. Got roasted by Fierceness by 13 lengths. But you go back and you watch that race. Catalytic is 4 wide on the first turn, 3 wide on the second turn, still fights down the lane. I don't think that the extra distance is going to be a huge issue. Has the ability to sit close and still kick. This is one of those horses, especially at 30-1. I want to have a piece of him in my Try and my Super. I think it's just literally a race too early to say that he can actually win the race or be a real threat in the exacta.
Jose Ortiz is going to pick up the mount for the first time. I'm passing on Catalytic. I absolutely respect your opinion, and I have, because of that, I've given this horse a lot closer look. For me personally, when he won his maiden on debut, it was October, so outside of the championship meet, not many good horses running that time at Gulfstream. Came back for his second start. It was a 1-turn race at Tampa Bay Downs, and he didn't win. To me, I should have seen something better, or maybe he should have been at 2 turns. I didn't love that ever. He did close from 8 lengths off in 7th to get up for the place, but just couldn't play him. And then last time out, yeah, he was second. He did, I guess, the dirtiest work of anybody. He was closest to Fierceness early, and then Fierceness just had that record-breaking performance. But I don't like Grand Mo the first at all in this spot. I'll spoil that now. There's a bunch of horses behind them that's like it was Fierceness and then an allowance field. So for me personally, I'm going to pass on Catalytic. But again, I respect the hell out of your opinion. And you were on Mage last year, and you just made the Mage comparison. So anybody who is considering Catalytic, take that into consideration.
Yeah, and this is one of those horses that kind of a darling when you look at some of the numbers. The buyer comes back at 90, so not huge. But if you look at the time form number, got a 111. A 111 is better than any race that Sierra Leone has run except for his last. So you just kind of have to take the last race grades out very, very good when you incorporate the early fractions, late fractions, and ground lost. And at the price, to me, it's almost too hard to pass up at 30-1 with a horse that I think has a legit shot for top 4. Again, not going to put Catalytic on top. Do like this horse. The Saffie out of Florida thing, obviously a concern as well. But the price again, I can't not do it. And yeah, we'll talk about buyers for Fierceness and time form for Fierceness a little bit later as well, because that is one of the big questions: are those numbers elevated or not?
Next up here, post 6, Just Steel for D. Wayne Lucas, jockey Keith Asmussen. Just started riding a couple of years ago. Now has Derby and Oaks mounts for D. Wayne Lucas here. How crazy? Aaron said this. How crazy would it be if Keith Asmussen gets a Kentucky Derby win before his Hall of Fame dad, who has more wins than any trainer in horse racing history in North America? But we'll see if that happens here. Do you consider Just Steel a threat at all?
I think Just Steel is another fringe super type horse for me. This horse shows up every time, runs well every time. You're getting the right price at 20-1 from a style perspective here. This fits as what you want as a long shot who's going to be able to run into the try, run into the super. Lost to Catching Freedom, lost to Mystic Dan, beat Mystic Dan last time out. I thought the Arkansas Derby was actually a very good race, running second to Muth. I think Muth would easily be the second choice in this race, maybe the favorite in this race if Muth was in here. You have to respect that last effort from Just Steel. And so I do think that this is a horse that you could use in your tries and supers. I'm not sure if I'm going to get there.
Not for me. I think, he's got a chance to get up there for like, what is it, top 5 get paid? I think they might get paid with this horse. I don't think you're going to get paid if you use him, if that makes sense. I don't think he's going to get there. But you've got to respect the hell out of a 3-year-old horse that's had 11 runs. He's finished in the exactest 6 of those times with 2 wins. But his 2 wins were a 6.5 furlong sprint last November at Churchill and then breaking his maiden at Saratoga, which a race that produced several good horses. BU was second in that by a neck. Locked became a grade 1 winner out of that. So he's faced really good horses. It's just he doesn't seem to usually get the jump on him, at least as a 3-year-old. So
No,
I'll pass on him, but I don't hate anybody that says they want to use him here.
yeah, one of my big concerns too is never done it back-to-back races. I mean, you've got the maiden special 8 win at Saratoga. Next race, the hopeful, he was flat. Now you can make a case that hopeful was just an atrocious trip, broke from the 1, that completely collapsed. Then runs big in the Ed Brown, comes back. The Smarty Jones wasn't his best effort. Runs well in the Southwest, doesn't run as well in the Rebel. Now ran well in the Arkansas Derby. Just hasn't been able to put the back-to-back races at the same level that you'd like to see.
Next up is one of our 2 Kentucky Derby or Triple Crown Fantasy League horses. I can't believe we have 2. It's exciting. I don't know if either of them is going to win or has a shot here, but it's exciting that we actually have a chance this year. Number 7, Honor Marie from trainer Whit Beckman, his first start in the Derby. Jockey Ben Curtis just came over last fall to Fairgrounds, a top flat rider on the synthetic overseas in the United Kingdom. He's got a Kentucky Derby mount because he rode this horse to a 2nd place victory, just 1 length off of Catching Freedom in the Louisiana Derby. What do you think about Honor Marie?
I think Honor Marie is very, very scary. I have Honor Marie as one of my exacta horses right now. If you go back and you just watch the races, just watch Honor Marie. The mental progression this horse has gone through from the start to now is just so impressive. And the fact that we saw a workout where Honor Marie goes out and goes 47 for 4 furlongs, all of a sudden, if there is any speed in Honor Marie, if they can find that, the position is going to be so much better than just dead back of the pack. And that's my biggest fear with Honor Marie, is that we are in that 18th, 19th position. But there is clearly a lot of mental movement that we've seen from this horse, and the kick is good. I think Honor Marie is a legit exacta trifecta horse, definitely going to be on a lot of my tickets.
Absolutely agree with you. What I love, too, is that this is 3rd start off the layoff, 3rd start at 3. Since he was 2, Beckman has been saying that this is a true 1.25 mile horse, and as Chris Maiello says here in the chat, he should be called Thomas the Tank Engine because he's full of steam. He's another one that when you give him a clear path to run, he's just going to come chug, 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 chug. Now, if it ends up being a sloppy track, that's going to make me worried because the 2 times he's been on slop, his 2nd career start, first time facing maidens, he was 2nd. He was beaten 4 lengths, and it was to Otto the Conqueror, who went on to win the Springboard Mile after that, but is really not. That was his peak right there. It might have been beating Honor Marie was his peak, honestly. And then the Risen Star Stakes, again, first off of a longer layoff here, but he never looked comfortable getting the kickback in the slop there. So I do love him. I love him to hit the board. I would be tickled pink if he won. And it was so exciting to see that last work when he did have this. Was like, whoa, where'd this speed come from this horse? And unlike several horses in here, Mike, he's got to win at Churchill Downs going 2 turns. He won the Kentucky Jockey Club last year as a 2-year-old.
He does. I mean, there's a lot to like, and I think that the steam thing was because of the price that is going to be attached to him. I don't think 20-1 is the off odds for Honor Marie. I think this is going to be one of your wise guy horses here. We'll see what the actual off odds are, but I do think Honor Marie gets bet down from the 20-1 number. But I wouldn't be shocked. Like, this is one of those horses where, like, if you told me Honor Marie won the Derby, I'd be like, okay, yep, I could see it. I like, it makes sense. Wow, this horse just keeps getting better and is getting better at the right time. And I'm hoping the connections are what keeps the price up, right? Because Whit Beckman, Ben Curtis, not household names to people who watch horse racing once a year. The Marie factor could be a negative. We could see a lot of Marie money coming into the pool because that is a thing. But maybe a lot of people have a Marie who's an X, so they're not going to bet her or him as well. So we'll see what happens here price-wise. I think this horse goes off somewhere in the 12 to 14-1 range and is a legit contender.
Yeah, I'm hoping more for 15-1. It should be double digits. By the way, I would say that Mystic Dan is going to be this year's My Boy Jack. Someone else brought up that possibly that's Honor Marie. I think there are going to be more Dans betting on the Derby than Marie's. That's people fair. With Marie connections is my guess. But again, Marie is a very, very common female name. Number 8, Just a Touch, a horse with just 3 starts. All of them this year debuted in January at Fairgrounds with a dominating victory by 4 1/4 length sprinting. Went to Aqueduct, got 2nd in the Gotham, a very weird race in the slop. Then got fast track in the Bluegrass, got 2nd to Sierra Leone. Actually had the lead at one point, but possibly chasing those fast early fractions kind of is undoing there. All that to say, what do you think about this Brad Cox trainee?
Just a touch, another exacta horse for me. This is one where I was not in on Just a Touch, but when watching through, and like one of the first things I do once the draw happens, I watch every single replay of all the preps, all these horses, and I watch just those horses. I think Just a Touch has a shot to be a real contender in this spot. If you go back again, we'll reference time form one more time here. Just a Touch got a 120. It's the only other horse not named Fierceness who has a 120 time 4 rating in any single race, and that was in the Bluegrass or the Bluegrass against Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone got a 116 for that race. So because of the early pace that Just a Touch had versus the overall time that came in, Just a Touch actually's race was rated higher. It's one of those the kind of unique things about time form when you factor in lost ground, when you factor in early and late pace rating. You're going to see some races where the second place finisher has a higher rating than the first. That's kind of the way that's exactly what happened with Just a Touch here. I think Just a Touch is a legit threat. The trip should be good. The 8 post is perfect, has tactical speed. We'll see if Just a Touch can like officially race. That's the one big question for me. Like, will Just a Touch get comfortable behind horses in 5th place? And if so, Just a Touch is a threat to win the race. But I right now have Just a Touch that exacta trifecta type spot.
Same for me. Yeah, I was very impressed. This is something that you taught me a long time ago, is when a horse comes from off the pace to win like that, or as part of a pace, and then everybody else kind of collapses. Like, where did this horse finish? Everybody that was within like a quarter mile of Just a Touch in the Bluegrass at first call, second call, nowhere near him at the finish line. He was right there. He had the lead, and you could possibly argue with a little more seasoning. Again, just 3 career starts so far. A little more seasoning, maybe he digs in, but I think just chasing or being part, one length off of those such early fractions going 1 mile and an eighth, his first time going 2 turns, I'm willing to be very forgiving. This sounds like you are, but yeah, everybody's bringing it up here. Can he rate? That is the question. 10-1. I think that we'll get around that point on him here. It's worth a bet at 10-1 to find that out, I think.
Yeah, the price is right. And again, the post is right and the trip should be right. And so really it's just going to come down to a question of talent. And is it too soon? We saw Mage do something very similar to this to win the Derby last year. We've seen Justified do it. So it's not like the Curse of Apollo is still nearly as much of a thing as it was. So we'll see if it's too early to see Just a Touch be able to pop for this type of race. But again, like I thought was really good in the Bluegrass. I thought ran the better race than the eventual winner there, Sierra Leone in the Bluegrass. And yet we're sitting here 10-1 with a better post position and a better projected trip than 3-1 Sierra Leone.
Next up, the other horse that we have in the Triple Crown Fantasy League, Encino from Post 9, the third of 3 Brad Cox trainees in here. Axel Concepcion just lost the Bug Boy moniker a little while ago, and he's now got a Kentucky Derby mount. Rode this horse in the first 3 starts, 2 wins, second by a neck. Last time out in the Lexington, Florent Giroux took him gate to wire in his dirt debut. A horse that is by a Kentucky Derby winner in Nyquist, out of a dam, a Bernardini mare who is half to Street Sense, another Kentucky Derby champion. Encino, where do you put him?
This is another one where I have it like that exacta try area. I love the versatility we saw from Encino. The fact that it was able to win from off the pace over the synthetic, then switches over to the dirt and goes gate to wire, takes advantage of a slow pace. I thought the dirt transition was a very good one. I thought Encino ran a good race. Going to have to get better, right? That's the key thing. Encino needs to continue to take a step forward. But if you sit there and you say, well, it's the second time going 2 turns on dirt, second time over dirt, there are arguments to be made this horse is going to get better. And then it's interesting because we talked about this on Thursday. They didn't know if Encino was actually going to go in the race. They were waiting to see the last workout. Well, guess what? That workout was so good. And if you watch it visually, you're like, nope, this horse wants to run on dirt. This is just fine. Like, we should probably put this one in the starting gate. That was kind of the tipping point for me, where it's like they were talking about not running him here, giving him the time for the Preakness, and then that workout was, and you say that when you're planning on not running him, by the way, like that, you lead in, you don't say that if you're planning on running him, you say that if you're planning on not running him, and he has to prove to you he is ready to go. The fact the horse did it, and Brad Cox can be like, yeah, we're going to the Derby. Like, there's no way I can't put him in after that workout. Tells me all I need to know about how Encino is currently doing. So I think he's another major player here.
Our friend Rodney has been on the Encino train for a long time, that well before he was going to be trying dirt here. And Kevin says, I'm worried Encino's price will be too short due to Rodney's bets. That got me. This is the horse that I have right now. I have him on the outside looking into my top 4, but I definitely have him as, like, if you want a real long shot, this is who I'm liking a lot. I love his draw. I love what he's shown. I love his progression. Every single one of his speed figures, no matter where you look, he's progressing. He's got Derby pedigree, top and bottom, as I mentioned. People are asking about Axel Concepcion. I've thought for a better part of like 6-8 months, this is going to be a future star jockey. In a couple of years, you're going to be seeing him at Saratoga at the Gulfstream Park Championship meet. This kid's got a lot of ability. He knows the horse very well. I was a little sad for him that he lost the mount for the Lexington. Flavien Prat was supposed to ride him in the Bluegrass Stakes. Loved that faith there from Flavien Prat. Concepcion didn't get it for the Lexington. But I also understand if Cox was like, listen, we're trying to make the Derby or try him on dirt. I want a more experienced jockey, so we put Florent Giroux up. But that is who Axel Concepcion is. He's been riding at Turfway Park all winter, but a very talented jockey.
Yes, I obviously have some concerns on the jockey side, but not overly concerned. And one question here, Vishon jumping in, Mike, didn't he take too long to put away the Wine Steward? I would be using the Wine Steward in this race. So that is a difference that might be a difference in my personal opinion. I liked the Wine Steward last year as a 2-year-old. I thought that was a really good comeback effort from the Wine Steward. He progresses out, where if he took a step forward out of that race, he would be one of the contenders in this spot as well. So because I like the Wine Steward so much, I think that also inflates my opinion on Encino, but some people may not be as big of a fan. I think the Wine Steward was a legitimate horse in this 3-year-old class and just didn't get to the track soon enough.
I agree that with Sean and with you guys that, Wine Steward's legit. I wouldn't use him in this spot, but one thing too, you say he took too long. That was an extremely confident ride from Florent Giroux. One of the rides that if he'd lost that, you would be sitting here swearing at Giroux if you had Encino on your tickets, because Giroux waited till the Wine Steward came up to Encino off the turn, and then he smacked him once on the shoulder, and the horse moved forward a little bit. And he smacked him once on the butt, and the horse moved forward again. And by the time Giroux knew he had this, he gave him one more smack just to kind of pull him away. Giroux was not asking this horse for his best. If you watch the replay of the Lexington, I think you can see that quite clearly.
It kind of felt like he's like, maybe we're going to come back in a couple of weeks here. Maybe I don't want to go to the bottom of the tank with Encino in that race.
Yeah. Yeah. Next up, number 10, T.O. Password. We got 2 Japanese horses to talk about in a row. T.O. Password, 2 starts both this year, broke the maiden on debut, and then won the Fukuryu Stakes to lead the Japanese road to the Kentucky Derby leaderboard. That's how he shows up here. Both races at 1 1/8. I don't have any interest in this horse at all.
Yeah, know him early, forget him late, right? Will be a pace presence. I expect he goes right from the jump, and he's one of those horses vying for the early lead. I expect he is going to back up pretty aggressively once we go around that second turn. If you're looking for that favorite market or the market to finish last in the Derby, I know a lot of people love betting that. I would say T.O. Password, one of the ones I'd be interested in that last place finish.
I watch his replays, and I got people who watch Japanese racing immediately in the comment section on YouTube when I analyze this horse, like, it's different. It's a lot slower. It's uphill. It's blah, blah, blah. He went 157 for 1 1/8 on debut, and then he went 154 in the Fukuryu Stakes. Not only did he go 154 gate to wire, if that line was 10 feet farther ahead, he would have lost. That horse was absolutely gasping for air. He might very well turn into a really good horse. He is not good enough to do anything in this Kentucky Derby right now.
Yep. I don't disagree with you. And that last place thing it is an interesting pool. But this is one of those horses. I always want like the speed horses. They're going to quit pretty aggressively. Yeah. And that feels like T.O. Password to me. You could make a case Dornoch is also in that list, because what if Dornoch doesn't break, right? Like,
yeah, he got nothing.
Game over.
The other Japanese horse, and the one that I know you have a future bet on, speaking of futures, number 10, Forever Young, undefeated in 5 starts, including the UAE Derby, which got him any of the points that he needed to get into this spot. But the horse has won on 3 different tracks in Japan, Saudi Arabia, and at Maidan. So 5 for 5, all at 5 different tracks. Churchill Downs, can you make a 6 for 6, Mike?
Man, this is the other horse that I don't know what to do with. I've got a future bet on Forever Young. I think it's got 25-1 to win the Derby. So at least getting closing line value on what we're going to go off at here. So that's a positive. I have cooled on this horse, though. This was a horse before the final round of preps, because we talked about this a lot in the Magic Mike show leading up to it. I didn't really like anybody in the U.S. until we got to these final round of preps. I thought some horses took nice steps forward, and that was one of the main reasons I put in that Forever Young ticket. I thought that this was a year where the group was so weak that a horse like this could come over and win. I still think Forever Young is like a legit horse, and I would say Try or Super right now for me, kind of rounding out those tickets. not as much of an on top contender as I originally thought 2 months ago.
I disagree about junk Jap horses. I think this one is extreme. I mean, he's 5 for 5 at 5 different tracks around the world. You've got to be very good here. The Japanese are improving. Until the last round of preps, I was with Mike saying, like, I don't know, this feels like the year Japan could do it with this horse. And then we saw some really great performances in those last rounds. We're like, okay, all right. I don't think he's going to finish last, like Chris Manlow is saying. I could see him finish like 6th, 7th, a really good run. But until we see a horse come over and do what Mandarin Hero did last year when he almost won the Santa Anita Derby, and you compete against the Americans before the Kentucky Derby, it's going to be hard for me to really say, yes, you absolutely can do it. Because this track, this style of racing is different than anything he's faced, including the UAE Derby.
I think a lot of it has to be just how good do you think the group is, right? Because the biggest issue with the UAE Derby, and look, I think the UAE Derby has been a little unlucky. I think Japanese horses have been a little unlucky when you overall look at how they have fared in this race. You've had some funky breaks, but you could also say that's because of the fact that they're now running in such different conditions as they had to prior. I still think this is the best Japanese horse that we've seen run in the Derby. And to me, this is one of the weaker classes before the last prep race that we had seen in the Derby in a while. I think Forever Young's legit. The way that Forever Young is going to run this race, I also think makes him relevant. He has tactical speed. He doesn't need the lead. He can pass horses. The distance isn't a problem. He checks all of the boxes you're looking for in a U.S. contender. And a lot of times the UAE Derby winner doesn't check those boxes. They're a speed horse. The Japanese horses don't check those boxes because they're coming from way back or way up front. This is one of those occasions where he checks every box you would be looking for in an American horse. It's just a Japanese horse.
My biggest concern with him and why he's a pass for me, we've seen, and his trainer said, he needs to be wide because he hates kickback. He's got to be wide of 15, 16, 18. How many horses is he going to have to be wide of? When they break from the gate, he's going to have them coming down on him. He's going to have, 8 horses to his outside there. They're all going to come down on him, or a few. We know a few of them are absolutely, including the horse directly to his outside, are going to come down on him. So how does he respond to that? Does he go 6, 7 wide through both turns? Justify couldn't win the Derby going 6, 7 wide through those turns. Pharaoh couldn't have done that. Like, it's just, that's too far of a distance to do that kind of wide.
You're going to need to get a little lucky with the trip, right? I mean, like, you're going to have to be 3 wide on both turns and hope that he can handle taking some kickback 3 wide. And we just don't know if that's going to be the case, because if he tries to go, and that's the other thing that I do think is a little bit concerning here, he's in between 2 horses that are going to go. So what does that mean for his race right out of the gate? Because we know the 10 TO Password's going to go. I shouldn't say we know. We assume TO Password's going to go. We know the 12 Track Phantom's going to go. What does that mean for Forever Young, who's sitting right in between him? Does he get pinched? Does that mean that there is no way that he takes kickback literally 40 feet into the race? He's taking kickback from some horse. And then you've got the horses on the outside pushing him over as well. How is that all going to line up for him? And so how do we know he doesn't like kickback? His trainer said it. Like, his trainer literally came out and said the horse doesn't like kickback.
Yeah. You also, like, from watching the replays, like, there is a reason why when he breaks, the jockey takes him out and keeps him out when he doesn't have to. But you can just, from watching, like, especially a head on, you can tell if he gets a little kickback, he throws his head a little bit. So good question, though. That's, we're not just making things up. I appreciate that you, Mr. Guitar 2010, are trying to keep us honest there. We're not making that one up. Number 12, Track Phantom for Steve Asmussen. During the winter, he looked great. It seems like he didn't really, he progressed that much. He's also adding blinkers for the Kentucky Derby, which adding equipment is usually a big giant red flag for horses coming to the Kentucky Derby. What do you think?
Yeah, first I want to highlight Tony's comment because it made me chuckle. If horses could talk, I'm certain they all would tell us they hate kickback. That is probably true. Some run better when they have kickback than others, though. Track Phantom, know them early, chuck them late again. This is another one where I think we have 3 cheap speed horses in here. Track Phantom, the 10 TO Password, and the 1 Dornoch. I think all 3 of them have the same chance of winning, which is absolutely 0. I think all 3 of them have the same chance of hitting the board, which is absolutely 0. But I think all of them will affect this race. Because again, this is a horse that's going to be poorly placed. The one way to win is to go forward. And the fact that we added blinkers also makes it interesting. Now I still think it's hilarious Joel Rosari's on this horse, right? Like, is he going to try and rate him in blinkers first time? Like,
Hall of Famer Joel Rosario.
Put some respect on that name.
Listen, if things come up just absolutely sloppy, messy, gross, that's one of my long shot picks to hit the board. No. I don't think he wins it, but the fact that he was right there until the very end of the Risen Star Stakes when it was his first time. The only time he'd been, he's been on slop twice. The first time he lost, he was second by a half length. But when it comes up sloppy like that, horses that are in front a lot of times that have some sort of staying power can get there. I think he's a super horse if it's sloppy. Other than that, absolute chuck for me.
Yeah, I think he'd have a better shot in the Pate Mile.
I agree. I really agree.
That's where this horse should be. This horse should be in the Pate Mile, not the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah. Number 13, West Saratoga, one of the longest shots at 50-1. Horse has 10 starts, 2 wins, including the Iroquois Stakes, which has now been cut back to a 1-turn mile, but second in the Pasco Stakes, third in the Sam F. Davis Stakes, second in the Jeff Ruby Stakes. He cashes a lot of checks. Is he going to cash one in the Kentucky Derby?
No. This is a complete chuck. No thanks. Not even a little interested. I can't even come up with a Rich Strike-esque theory for how West Saratoga ends up hitting the Super.
Yeah, it's a great story. Very small time connections. They bought him for $11,000. He is by Exaggerator out of an Uncle Mo mare. So if it comes up really sloppy, if he's never been on a wet track, so if you like him, those are things that could help you. But nothing for me. This is a great question. Curtis Malin was a little late. We'd already moved on. But if it's Track Phantom with Steve Asmussen trains versus Just Steel, who Steve Asmussen's son Keith will be riding, if it's those two horses in the stretch, who does Steve Asmussen root for?
Just Steel.
Yes, I think he'll probably be rooting for Just Steel for his son. I also think he'll be like one of 8 people that are still conscious if those are the 2 horses running for the wire in the Kentucky Derby, and the rest of us are just gonna black out about the 8th pole.
Yeah, I mean, look, if just how many mounts is his son going to have in the Derby versus how many more Derby mounts will Asmussen have, right?
Yeah, no, Asmussen's going to keep getting
one here.
yeah. They asked Keith, or it probably means Steve. Steve said his wife roots for Keith and he roots for Track Phantom. That's
also
fitting.
Good. I think they both be rooting for Just Steel.
I'm with Chris. Now that I'm a parent and you're a dad as well. Yeah, as a parent, Just Steel. Like, you would feel a little bad if you got your first Derby win and your son was riding the second place horse. Like, okay, I won. Yeah. I finally did it.
It's just got a really big exacta.
Yeah, there you go. Horse number 14, by the way, we talked about Jeff Ruby Stakes, where West Saratoga was second. The winner is Endlessly, a horse who's 5 for 6 lifetime. The only time he lost was the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. He'd be forgiving about losing that race to some of the best turf 2-year-olds in the world. However, he's never tried dirt, and his trainer, Michael McCarthy, hasn't sounded overly enthusiastic about being in the Derby at all. So what do you think about Endlessly, the 14?
I'm not going to use Endlessly. This is a toss for me. This feels like ownership saying you are putting him in the Kentucky Derby, and that is why this horse is here. Right after the win, right after the prep win, they said that Endlessly was going to go to a turf race on this weekend. That plan was to go to a turf race on this weekend, and the ownership clearly said, you're qualified. You're running him in the Derby. This is a turf horse. Like, it's just really that simple for me. We saw the nice move over the synthetic. I thought I like Endlessly quite a bit as a horse. I don't like Endlessly at all in this spot.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. He's a great horse. It's Derby. And I can't fault the owners for doing it, because this is their first Derby horse in 20 some years of being an owning and breeding operation. He's a homebred, and also he's by Oscar Performance, who was an Ammerman's horse that they had a lot of success with. So they usually have turf horses. I understand if you got the chance to put a horse in the Kentucky Derby, but as a bettor, absolutely not. I mean, even when he's run on the dirt, it hasn't really looked visually that great. I know he had the 47-4 time in his last spin over the dirt at Churchill, but I just don't think that this is the right spot for him. But if it wins, hey, it's a good story. We love Michael McCarthy, the trainer, and Umberto Rispoli, the jockey, is going to keep the mount for the 3rd straight time. So it'd be nice if it happens. I just don't think it's going to happen. Speaking of things I don't think will happen, domestic product, 15 posts, and it's weird. It's Chad Brown. It's Irad Ortiz Jr. Normally those connections, you're like, yeah, they've got a shot in almost every race. I don't think this is a race they have a shot, Mike.
Yeah, me neither. Look, the Tampa Bay Derby I thought was not that impressive. You go back to the race, the Holy Bull, where Hades won. That was a race where we talked about, like, Hades not that good of a horse. Domestic product couldn't get the job done there. We'll obviously talk about that race again a little bit in a few horses. And we'll talk about the Tampa Bay Derby in the next horse as well. But I'm not impressed with domestic product here. I I can't, again, come up with the scenario where domestic product wins or the race style, especially out of that 15 post. Probably going to be hung a couple wide on the first turn, sitting somewhere in the mid pack, and there's just better horses around domestic product to me.
Chris Mallow and Kevin B both saying Andy Serling picked this horse 30-1. I mean, you're never going to get 30-1 on Chad and Irad in a race, really.
Look, people made that face when I picked Mage last year, so I'm not going to say anything.
Listen, I told you this before we came on air. This horse has the highest Brisnet late pace rating of anyone in the field. It came last out in the Tampa Bay Derby. It was impressive if you consider they went 25-1, 51, 116. He was fifth, a couple lengths back, and closed to win. That is impressive. I don't like the fact that the second highest late pace rating in the entire field is Grand Mo the first. I think from the same race, kind of did the same thing domestic product did, and then exited that and just never looked that great in the Florida Derby. So I'm going to pass on him, but there are things to like about this horse. He has shown the ability to fight. He's got 3 good races on the page, all at 2 turns, which being a practical joke son, it's a little surprising, but he's got that painter underneath. Not for me, but if you like Chad and Irad, you are getting a hell of a price on this horse.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those where if someone said this is a try super horse for me, I'd be like, okay, nope, I get it. It makes sense. I can see how you could get there. If you're a buyer person, this is a horse that you're probably going to like. And I say that because the buyers are a little lower than they probably should be coming out of the races he's coming out of. So there is a little bit of added value in that sense. I think he's a couple low. And I'm not sure that domestic product takes a step forward. I think that's the other big issue for me here is that you need to see a pretty big improvement to be able to get it going. And I'm not sure we get that big step forward here first Saturday off the Tampa Bay Derby. But Chad Brown also trained this one up after the Tampa Bay Derby. So clearly thought the plan was always going to be to head here. Irad's riding. Like there are things to like here about a 30-1 shot. No
horse has won the Tampa Bay Derby, not made a start, and then won the Kentucky Derby. Now, I say that. There have only been 2 horses in the last, I want to say like 15 years, I went back and looked, who have done it. And they ran okay. They finished 6th and 7th. Helium was one. Was Destin the other one? Might have been Destin. But it's not a thing that you like to see. It's such a long gap. If I told you, forget the race and what he looked like that. If I said, Mike, there's a horse coming into the Kentucky Derby who hasn't run since March 9th, and he got this kind of a speed rating, it's going to be really hard for me to convince you that this is a horse you need to bet, at least to win.
Yeah. And does Irad have other options? That was one of the questions. Not really. He didn't run or ride any other prep winners. He probably could have gotten on a horse like Catalytic, right? And then Jose ended up there. So there were probably a couple other options, but not any that were significantly better than domestic product. It's not like he chose domestic product over a horse that's 10-1, 8-1, something like that.
See, I would say no, because it's not only is it a Kalleward Stables horse, but it's a homebred by Kalleward Stables, who's Chad Brown's top owner, and also Irad usually his first call for that horse. But he's never been on this horse before. This will be his first time riding, which is quite interesting there. The next one up, Grand Mo the first. We mentioned him earlier. Last out, 3rd in the Florida Derby, beaten 16 lengths. Before that, 3rd by a neck. He was right there in the photo for the Tampa Bay Derby with domestic product. And No More Time, who was 2nd, is not making the Kentucky Derby here. Any interest at all in this horse at 50-1?
No, it is a toss for me. I actually like the horse, but not interested in actually the horse hitting the board or winning. So I'm chucking Grand Mo the first out completely. Don't want to spend too much time on him. He's a couple low. Congratulations for making the Derby. That's really where it goes as far as it goes. I wouldn't be shocked if this horse wins a grade 3 Derby somewhere in the summer, though. Like, I think this isn't a bad horse, just not good against this field, especially with the post.
Yeah, I'm going to pass. There's nothing here that I've really liked about him. We know what he is. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up winning a graded stakes, like a grade 3 somewhere. Good horse, not Kentucky Derby style. The favorite, I almost passed right over them there. The 5-2 morning line favorite will try to be the first horse in the history of the Kentucky Derby to win from post 17. That's Fierceness, your Breeders' Cup Juvenile champion, last out, record-breaking winner of the Florida Derby by 13 lengths. That's the record he set. Maybe you love or don't love the field that he beat there, but super impressive nonetheless. Tell me about Fierceness.
Fierceness is going to be the pick. Not exactly my normal style. This is the first time I've picked a Derby favorite in 5 years. The last one was our boy Tis the Law, and that wasn't even a normal Derby. If you want to go to the last time I picked a favorite before that, I think it was Justify. So it's been a minute since I've been on the favorite in the Derby. I keep going back to Fierceness. And the problem is this isn't a bad post for him. Like the 17 thing, first off, it's a myth. There's only been 44 17 horses break from post 17. There's only been 2 favorites who've ever broke from it. Only 4 horses under 10-1. The last 5 years, it's been 25-1 or longer. So it's not like we've had good horses in the 17 post. And when you project Fierceness's trip, he's going to be able to sit 3 wide on the first turn, 3 wide on the second turn. If he runs back to the Florida Derby, if he runs back to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, he wins this race by open lengths. And that to me is where I really have an issue getting around Fierceness in this spot. I think if you get 5-2, 3-1, it's actually value in this race because he should be shorter than that considering where he drew. The fact he drew outside, I think, was a very good thing. I wouldn't 14 would have been better, but 17, not that terrible. His early speed gives him the ability to sit outside and be able to make the move around the field on the final turn. The issue distance shouldn't be an issue. He looks great in the morning. He looked great in the Florida Derby. He's the best horse in this race, and I'm talking by 10%. And that's when you look at time form. That's when you look at Brisnet. That's when you look at Beyer, whatever you want to look at. Everyone needs to improve by 10%, assuming he doesn't get better. It's hard to pass on a horse like that when I can't come up with a trip issue.
I completely agree with what Chris Mayella says here. If he breaks, he wins. The end. Analysis over. Yeah, I think it's that simple. When he breaks, he wins. The 2 times he lost, he didn't break well, and that was his undoing. I think post 17 helps him in that sense because he's only got 3, 18, 19, 20 to his outside there. So just 3 horses that might mess with him a little bit, and none of those 3 horses really have a sharp early speed. They might get a little squirrely coming out of the gate, but nobody did come down on him. It's a matter of how many horses beat him out of there. If Dornoch breaks well, he's going to get sent with Sayas aboard. If Track Phantom, you assume he's going to go, though now that they add blinkers, that makes a question. You don't know what TO Password's going to do. Encino went gate to wire in the Lexington. You're not sure what he's going to do. I'm going to take a stand against Fierceness, but I would not be shocked 1 iota if he wins this race and he wins for fun. He's got that ability in him. There's just, for me, too many question marks for 5-2 here. So I'm going to try to beat him. But again, not going to shock me one bit if he wins. I do have a question for you. Is this the 3rd straight year that you picked a Florida horse? Kevin B was asking that.
No, I picked Taba 3 years ago.
Taba, the reason, by the way, that this is always Nick's go is because on the backside it's Taba, and I refuse to ever put Taba on screen. I am so mad at Jared for sending me something that had Taba on one side of it.
Yeah, 5 years ago it was Tis the Law. 4 years ago it was Medina Spirit. 3 years ago it was Taba. Last year Mage. This year going to be Fierceness.
Did you have Epicenter that year that he ran, or was that?
I had him in 3rd or 4th.
Okay.
Then that was the
year.
No, yeah, that was the Taba year. That race was just a mess. Looking back at it too. But, I think the reason he's 5-2 is all your concerns, and that's why I think there's actually value on him. Is that if he runs his good race, and the problem is it's hard to make an excuse. I actually can make an excuse for the first off the bench more than I can that second career race. The second career race is the one that really, really kind of scares you a little bit. But the first off the bench, to me, Pletcher never dials him up. Never dials them up first off the bench when they're coming back. I would if it was a little better, but he never really dials them up. And that Florida Derby was it was so good. The Florida Derby, by the way, I talk about that circuit a lot because it is the most productive of the preps. If you look back historically on what we've seen in the Kentucky Derby. So yeah, I like Fierceness. I like Fierceness quite a bit. I was expecting to pick Fierceness heading into the draw. I thought this was a positive draw for him and a negative draw for some of the other horses that I thought were main contenders.
Lots of split opinions on Fierceness, but several opinions. I think this horse, it brings out more opinions from people than any other horse in here. And that's a great thing for us. And I'm not going to, like I said, I'm not going to tell you one way or the other. If you're against him, I'm on your side. If you're on him, I'm not going to talk you off of him there. I think, how about this? If Fierceness doesn't win, is he in the Superfecta?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, he wins the race or he finishes 8th or 9th because something happened and he just didn't, he didn't break well, ends up in 10th, takes kickback, doesn't get the move around the far turn. Like I could make a case where you single Fierceness on top of your supers and then you play supers not using him at all. And, you try because look, if Fierceness and Sierra Leone run out, the superfecta is paying at least 10,000, right? So but again, I think Fierceness is that good. I really do. And I wasn't high on any of these horses coming into it. So it makes it a lot harder for me to be like, well, no, Fierceness is that good. And then I'm going to say, oh, but these other horses that showed me one race that progressed through it are going to be the pick for me. So yeah, I mean, I'll take Fierceness on top, and last would be a little aggressive. I do think that there is a world where if he doesn't break very well, it's back of the pack. And a lot of this, people talking about it, the odds are past. It's you either love him or you hate him at this price. And it's the same thing with Sierra Leone in my mind. You either love Sierra Leone or you hate Sierra Leone at that price because there are flaws there too. And so the question is, which way are you going to go? And for me, I'm going to go with a positive on Fierceness here.
We got 5 more horses to go through. We'll start with the 18 Stronghold, the only California endlessly, I guess, but he did make his final prep in the Sanity Derby in California. Stronghold beat Imagination by a neck. After the Sunland Derby, I thought for sure this is a horse I think is going to hit the super. The more I look at it with this post, I'm like, God, I want to like him more than I think I should. What about you?
He's a pretty easy chuck for me. I didn't like the California class outside of the Baffert horses this year. I didn't see anything that was catching my eye. I think the distance is going to be an issue for Stronghold. I think he got a perfect trip in the Santa Anita Derby. And now you're breaking from the 18. You've got Fierceness to your inside who's faster than you. You've got a bunch of horses that are faster than you. I don't see how Stronghold gets a trip here to be able to do it. Well, running at a distance, I don't think he wants.
He is by Ghost Zapper on top, but he's got that Jimmy Creed sprinter underneath there, which makes him a little touchy there. He's a fighter, but also He barely beat Imagination. If Imagination's in this race, I know he's Baffert. He's not Baffert's best or second best. Well, he's probably Baffert's second best that's in training right now, but there's a big gap between him and Muth here. So
yeah, he's going to fight for 8th, maybe 9th.
Yeah, maybe for the super. If you really like him, maybe underneath in the super, just can't play him. But again, it'd be really cool. First, Kentucky Derby for trainer Phil D'Amato. First for jockey Antonio Frisu. And I loved after the Santa Anita Derby, Frankie Dettori was on Imagination, and he was so praiseworthy of his fellow Italian stallion Antonio Frisu. So that was cool to see there. The number 19 Resilience trainer Bill Mott. We're going to have jockey Junior Alvarado aboard for the first time. Johnny Velasquez aboard when he won the Grade 2 Wood Memorial. John Velasquez, of course, riding Fierceness. So Bill Mott, Junior Alvarado on Resilience. Any chance?
Borderline super horse for me. This is one that I've gone back and forth in that tri-super area. Don't love the New York preps as a general rule of thumb. They're usually not the most valuable prep, specifically that Wood. But the Wood I thought was a very good race from Resilience. You can't ignore the fact that was first time blinkers. The horse took a nice step forward off it. Never looked like a loser in that race and was under wraps the majority of it as well. I thought that was really impressive here. Big concern for me, the 19th post. How is this horse going to be able to sit that similar trip? If you go back and you watch the Wood, basically sat on the inside of 2 horses going in front of him, was able to tip out and just go right on by. Looked really impressive doing it. Not sure how you're going to pull it off from the 19 spot. What are you going to be 5 wide, 4 wide, and you're going to be in the 3rd flight? So you're like 9th at that point around the first turn. It's just a big time difference from what we saw in the Wood. So the trip was perfect in the Wood. It's going to be a disaster here. How can Resilience respond? I think it's the big question.
Took a big step forward, adding blinkers for the first time, as Sean Monks brings up in the chat. Cool story in the sense that bred by Pam and Martin Wygod, that family, huge into horse racing, breeding. Martin Wygod unfortunately passed away within the last week, I believe. They gifted this horse to their daughter before he passed away. Emily Bushnell is one of the 2 owners listed here. So cool story. I'm sure you're going to hear a lot about that on the Kentucky Derby coverage here. But yeah, we're going to chuck on him. And I'm going to say, because we chucked out the winner of the Wood Memorial, the horse to his outside, number 20 Society Man, who was 107-1 in the Wood Memorial and got second. We're probably chucking him too, aren't we?
Yeah, also a chuck. Could be your absolute pieces horse. If everything falls apart, all of a sudden here comes Society Man for 4th. But I'm not gonna have Society Man on any tickets of mine. So a chuck for me as well.
Yeah, the only win in his career came 2 starts back before the Memorial. It was the only time he had Lasix on. It wasn't in the mud, but it was also going 1 turn. So you would expect him to be good in the mud. He's a son of good magic, so a grandson of Curlin there. By the way, I missed this. Dr. Miranda, who's our on-site representative there at Churchill Downs in Louisville, said the resilience looked not great yesterday morning workout. So if that matters to you, you've got that going for you as well. Two other horses that we'll talk about quick if they draw in on the also eligibles list. Epic Ride, number 21 horse. I thought ran a sneaky good third in the Bluegrass, was never looked like a winner, but we talked about it with Sierra Leone that horse came flying and just a touch was up on the early pace. Epic Ride, well beaten third, but third nonetheless.
Yeah. Wouldn't completely discredit this horse if he makes the field. I could see myself throwing this one on the bottom of a super, something like that. Just tries really hard and doesn't stop trying. And sometimes that's good enough to finish fourth in the Derby.
This is about Society Man. But Kevin B says Kenny McPeak wheeling his gorilla Torpedo Anna back off. 1 day's rest from the Oaks has a better chance to hit the board than Society Man with Frankie Dettori riding. Dettori got them out. I don't know where else Dettori was going to get them out in here. So, go on Society Man. Rodney says Epic Ride, if he gets him, he'll be on ticket to run third or fourth. Another horse that would not completely shock me if he hits the board. Just it's hard to really sit here and consider him very much because we don't know if anybody's scratching yet. And on that note, Mugatu 22, the last horse that would make the gate if there were two scratches here. Trainer Jeff Engler, jockey Joe Talamo, 12 starts, 1 win, came back in November on the synthetic surface, 5 in the money finishes. Any opinion at all on Mugatu?
Love the necktie, the piano necktie tie. Disappointed that's not on the silks. That would make me like Mugatu a little bit more here. In the specific race, no, I will be passing on this horse.
Yeah, he tried dirt for this. So he's tried dirt twice. The first time it was at Gulfstream Park, non-championship meet going a 1-turn mile, 4th beaten 10 lengths. Last out, tried the Bluegrass Stakes, 5th beaten 7.5 lengths. Didn't really have anything. He just kind of passed tired horses there. So I am going to pass on him as well. And it seems like everybody other than Joseph Urbanowitz. I know Joseph is huge on this horse, but everybody else is against him here. Davey says, just got here. Restart, please. All right. Yeah, we'll get started here. We've only been going for an hour and six and a half minutes. So why not? We'll start back over now. Any final thoughts here before we take off, Mike?
What horse do you think you're most likely to change your mind about before Thursday?
Encino, because I've got him on the outside looking in for my top 4. What about you?
Catching Freedom, I think, is the one that might sneak up into my top 4 that I don't have there right now. That's the one for me that's been kind of the most difficult going through this process, is where do I put Catching Freedom? Because I thought he ran a lot better, but like we also talked about this race. I know we talked about him earlier, but we talked about in the Risen Star how he didn't like not being wide, and then he was wide in the Louisiana Derby, and we saw a much different version of the horse. Like, I'm kind of worried breaking from the 4, you're not going to be out in the clear in a lot of this race, and is that going to be a problem for Catching Freedom?
Matthew Muscala, did Magic say who his number 1 pick was? Yes, I did. It is Catching Freedom because...
Swing! Swing!
Tentpole!
Got it before you did this time. I wouldn't let you surprise me with it.
I like this question. Mike, what odds would someone have to give you to bet Sierra Leone?
Oh.
Between 8 and 10 to 1.
Somewhere I was going to guess 6 to 8 to 1. So yeah, that fits. Okay.
Yeah. I will probably, I'll be in Vegas for the Derby. I'll be at Circa. So I will probably bet the no on Sierra Leone, depending on what the price is when I get there. Last I saw it was like minus 425, something like that. And then I think I will not bet, however, and this is a question I got asked quite a bit. There are Sierra Leone versus Fierceness head-to-heads. I am not going to be betting that. Because even though Fierceness is my top pick and I'm against Sierra Leone, I don't think that the ceiling for Fierceness is high, but the floor is pretty low. And Sierra Leone, I think the ceiling is low, but the floor is low as well, if that makes sense. I don't think Sierra Leone runs in the back 10 of this race ever. I don't think Sierra Leone wins the race very often either. But to me, I do think Fierceness could run it toward the back of the pack if things go poorly early. However, I think Fierceness most likely wins the race. So for me, that's a bad head-to-head matchup. I'd rather look at some other head-to-head matchups, like, even someone like Catching Freedom versus Sierra Leone. I would be a better head-to-head than Fierceness versus Sierra Leone.
Last comment, and then we'll get out of here. Anthony Wayne. I saw that someone mentioned this earlier. Ask about Javier Castellano. The Kentucky Derby winning jockey has not had a mount 2 years in a row in the next Derby. Sonny Leone, you kind of okay, that's not surprising because he rode Rich Strike and then tried running against the big boys on a circuit, and everybody realized, like, okay, maybe he got lucky like the horse got lucky that time. Javier Castellano, Hall of Fame jockey, won 2 of the 3 Triple Crown legs last year. I'm surprised he doesn't have a mount anywhere in this race.
Yeah, me too. I'm happy to see some trainers and connections stuck with jockeys. We haven't seen that a lot over the years. Like a lot of times they'll switch over to new jockeys, but it is a bummer not to see Castellano in after winning it last year. I
would have thought he would have gotten Society Man. Frankie Dettori's agent, Ron Anderson's got to be like about the best in the game because that guy, also got Rosario's book and Johnny V's book. He hustled the shit out of it, getting the Society Man for Frankie. We don't think he has a chance to win, but Dettori, just his second career Derby start. So he wanted to get one more Derby mount in before he retired, and he got it.
All right, last question before we take off. Best long shot. Horse 20-1 or higher you think is going to hit the board, or you're most confident in hitting the board, Magic?
Anna Marie.
I'm between Anna Marie and Encino. I would.
That was my other one too. Yep.
Yeah, it'd be one of the two. Like if I'm going longer, it would be Catalytic, but I'm probably going to say Encino.
Yeah, there you go. We'll split it right down the middle. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining us. This was a lot of fun. If you missed part of it, go back to the start. We go through every single horse, and I've got it displayed on the screen. So if you're like, I want to skip ahead till horse like 12, you can just keep skipping until you see horse 12 pop up there. Mike and I will be back this Thursday, regular time, 5 Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, for the Kentucky Derby Day Late Pick 5, the one that ends in the Kentucky Derby. So always a fun show. Please come, bring your hot opinions for all of those races, and you can find out how we're playing those. Follow us on Twitter. I'm at Curtis Kalleward. He's at Somobomb 18, number 1, number 8. You can find me this week on FanDuel TV, Wednesday from 2 to 5:30. I'll be on with Kurt Hoover. Mike, when will you be on VSiN this week?
Pretty much every day. I'll be on Wednesday morning doing the Deep Dive podcast, on Wednesday afternoon. Going to be on Thursday on Lombardi Line. That'll be at 1:30 Eastern, talking about the Derby. Friday from 2 to 3 Eastern, we'll be talking about the Derby on VSiN. Shout out to Aaron Halterman, who will be hosting a show with Patrick Maher on Saturday morning. On VSiN for it, leading up into my show on Saturday. It's onto the handle, so he'll be hosting from 9 or from let me make sure I get this right, from 10 to noon on Eastern, and then I'll be on from noon to 3 on Eastern, leading up to the Derby, and then on again right before the Derby breaks on VSiN as well. So if you want those picks, head over there.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Really appreciate you. Until Thursday, actually, I should also plug Tuesday through. For the rest of the week, starting tomorrow, we'll have the Derby live, like a daily little live show. It'll be Aaron and I, possibly Jared as well, at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific here on the YouTube channel. But until the next time we see you, I'm Magic.
And I'm Mike.
Good luck this week.
The Magic Mike Show, where you hear the experts speak. The Magic Mike Show. Tune into the show every week. The Magic Mike Show. You can trust the show is the bomb because it's being brought to you by RacingDudes.com.